Well, now that we've gotten the crap out of the way with the top 5 worst films of 2010, we can move into the good stuff. The top 5 movies of 2010. Now, as a reminder, I am only putting movies on here that were released in 2010 and that I have seen. So if there is a movie on here that you think deserves to be in the top 5 and is not, before you say, how dare I not put it on there, ask me if I saw it or not. Because if I didn't see it, how can I really judge it? A perfect example, I did not see Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I know a lot of people are saying it's their favorite, or it's at least in their top 10 of the year. But I did not see that film, so I can't judge. I don't know whether I would have liked it as much as I like these films, or whether I would have not liked it. I can't tell that. Hopefully soon I will find out, but for at least now, I can't do a judgment on it, and keep that in mind for other stuff. Now, we're going to start the list off at number 5 with Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 was basically the perfect sequel, in that it felt like a very natural extension of the first film. They had very good cast continuity with the exception of Rhodey, and everyone kept their same characterizations. There wasn't any real dramatic changes, except for Rhodey again. And it also, not only did it do a good job at keeping the first film as a natural extension, it seemed like it was moving towards the Avengers, which nowadays it's very serialized how franchises are set up, so you know it's moving towards something else, especially if it's the second movie. And I think they did a good job at introducing Black Widow and giving us a little bit more time with Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. However, there was something, I will agree with a lot of people, that it didn't feel as good as the first film. I myself can't put it down exactly. I think the first film has had a really, really good story, and it's very hard to match that. But this was still a fun film. I really enjoyed it. And that's why it earned a number 5 spot. Now, number 4 spot earned its chops for something else. Number 4 is Daybreakers. Daybreakers was quite original. You know, in a lot of these more modern vampire films, they normally come up with a plot that the vampires want to take over the world. And, well, this film actually went, you know, what would it look like if that happened? It's a very interesting look. The world is very well developed. And I just love the story. Now, I do agree somewhat it does beat your head over a little bit too much with the oil anthology, or its comparisons to oil. But it was still a fun film. It could have used a little bit more action, but I was quite happy, and I was still very impressed by how well this film was put together, considering the incredibly small budget it had. It only had about a $20 million budget, and the film looks like it had about 3 times that. So I applaud the filmmakers for this. It was a great film. It was a fun film. And of course, Samuel Neal as the bad guy. He does such a great villain. Makes it enjoyable. And again, the originality of this film. Completely different look. Great, refreshing look at vampires. I mean, even down to the you can't see them in the mirror. Who does that in vampire movies anymore? We apparently have them sparkling in the sunlight, but you know, this film, this goes back way to the hardcore origin. These are real vampires. The only thing about they don't do is turn into real bats. They transform into those weird things. But I digress, because it's time to get into number 3, which was Kick-Ass. Pun intended, this movie kicked ass. And it actually is one of those rare examples where the film actually, at least in my opinion, did improvements over the original source material. There was a lot of whiny emo stuff in the original comic, and I'm just happy they decided not to put that into the film. Added on to that by great performances by Nicolas Cage, Mark Strong, and of course, I always have a problem saying her name, Chloe Grace Moretz? Mortez, whatever. I told you I can never say her name right. But she was amazing as Hit Girl. Who is this? Oh my, original character. I was very surprised. There is something about this next wave of young actresses which are able to do really good performances. I just saw True Grit, and the actress in that one did a really great job despite her young age. And I will again say this film could have used a little bit more action, just because all those scenes with Hit Girl and Big Daddy were so enjoyable. That was really it. And I think this has been said by a lot of people. You want to see more of Hit Girl and Big Daddy in this film. You wish they were the main characters and not Kick-Ass so much. Who knows? Maybe if they make a sequel, I don't think so because of the box office revenue. But still, maybe one day, crossing fingers, we will see another film. Definitely one of my favorites. But it didn't get number 2, which goes to Predators. Now, I know I'm going to hit some shit on the internet because I put Kick-Ass above Predators. The reason Predators beat out Kick-Ass was because I have both DVDs, and now that I have them, I find myself watching Predators much more than I watch Kick-Ass. And that's an important thing for when you want to know what's really the best movie, what's going to be remembered for a very long time, is a movie that you're just going to keep going to. And Predators does that, mainly because it's a great mix of action, suspense, and characters. That's what made the first Predator film, was this kind of action, suspense, Predators thing, and characters. And that's what this film does. They put a very good group of characters together, they really develop them, and you have fun watching them. And then, of course, you have some decent action scenes. Definitely putting a little bit of new twist on the franchise without actually ruining the Predators concept. Let's say there's sometimes a problem with exposing and talking too much about what the aliens are or what the mystery is in most films. And the original Predator really relied on having no information about the Predator other than it was just hunting Arnold Schwarzenegger and his team. And this film goes with what we've learned. It adds a little bit, but it really doesn't tell us anything at all more about the Predators. It says there's 2 tribes and they kind of fight, but they still leave a lot of mystery. And that's a good thing. Don't cave into the temptation of telling the audience too much about your world. And it was just generally a fun film. So, now I'm sure most of you have probably started to guess what's number 1 here. And what number 1 is of course Inception. This was a great film. Now, I know a lot of people talk about how complicated the plot was, and I agree, it was a complicated plot. But when I watched this film, I was able to keep track of it. So that's a good thing. There are plenty of movies with very complicated plots, but if you can't keep track of it, that's the movie's fault. It's supposed to try to tell you. It's supposed to be able to talk to you. It's supposed to be able to explain stuff to its audience. If you lose your audience, that's a problem. And Christopher Nolan kept this wonderful. While, despite the complexity, you were still able to keep track of it. It turned into a great heist movie, some great characters, great visual effects, without going too much into the dreamy stuff. If you really think about dreams, I know most dreams I have, they're not really like the kind of psychedelic stuff you normally see. They normally have settings in kind of like the normal world or the world around you. And that's what this movie really does. I think it did a really good job at looking at dreams, asking some questions. And I've seen this movie now again a couple times, and I keep on seeing new stuff, that something a character says, and you see something about, like, later on, Maul, when you first see her, she's talking about jumping over that, will I die if I fall? If the second time you see that movie, you start catching all this stuff, and it's a fun film to watch a second time. It also still has very good action. It's an intelligent action movie, just what everybody wanted. And again, an original, big budget, smart action film. You don't see those too often, and this movie pulled it off. Christopher Nolan, certainly one of the best film directors of this generation, and we're lucky to have him. Wonderful, wonderful film. It has earned the title of the best movie of 2010, according to my YouTube channel. Well, let's see how 2011 turns out. Looks like we might have some good ones here, or they might turn to crap. We'll find out soon enough. Signing off.